Let's talk now about the future of Transnet, which is our question of the day, whose health and existence seem to be uncertain. And to discuss a recent op-ed that he's written, Dr. Ebrahim Harvey, who is a renowned political writer, analyst, commentator, author and a former COSATU trade unionist, joins us now. Dr. Harvey, thank you very much for your time tonight. We appreciate it. In your writing, you cite respected economist Kevin Lings's work on the impact Transnet has on the economy. So I want to start by sharing some of that data with our viewers. 3.1 trillion out of a total of 4.6 trillion in our GDP depends in one way or another on Transnet. Kevin also writes it's at risk because the entity has virtually collapsed. And you had a long think about this, and you're posing a challenge to the leadership and the shareholder to address them. Just share with us your thoughts on that.
Yes, thanks, Iman. Thanks, and good afternoon to the viewers. Look, there's much to be said in response to your question. The first thing to realize is that I think what is happening to Transnet is symptomatic of what has happened to all the SOEs from 1974. And what is happening, very interestingly, the crisis in Eskom and in Transnet appears to be simultaneously coming to a head. You will see that today so much is being made of the Transnet crisis that the shadow minister for public enterprise of the DA, Caleb Kachalia, has also called for the head of the freight division of Transnet, Caesar Mzimela. I've just had to get the name right here. Because at the heart of all the problems, although the CEO resigned, both leading positions on the board resigned, the heart of the problems really is with freight rail, and you've seen particularly with exporting of minerals and metals and other products, the problems that have occurred at the ports and railway ports and harbors has been at the heart of the problems in transit. Now, while the public enterprise minister, Pravin Gordhan, has a lot to answer for, you also have to recognize that he's under immense pressure. And you've heard what COSATU had to say. There's been a turnaround a bit. If you look at the thinking that has come last week out of the regarding SOEs in the future, and you can see what is realized rather belatedly, the problems of ANC cadre deployment. With the new thinking that's emerging from this ministry is to draw a line, a strategic line to prevent political interference in SOEs. And I've seen the messages of that you've played now. Yeah. You can see a lot of the ordinary people beginning to see. This has been there, man, for years, many years. It's coming to a head now. And in fact, if you look at the crisis in the ruling party, I will put it 60 to 70% of the problems in the ANC government has resided with SOEs.
Well, as you write, Dr. Harvey, sorry to jump straight in there, because it connects to what you write about given the ANC's December resolution around the control of SOEs, and it would suggest that you're saying that there's a sacrifice of the performance of these SOEs and over political expediency. So let's sharpen the question then. What, in your estimation, has the impact of the leadership of Portia Derby and the criticism leveled about her decision-making, then the support given to her by Minister Pravin Gordhan had on Transnet as a result of this position?
No, this is what has happened. You must remember that Pravin Gordhan wrote a letter, a stinging letter. Look at it last week, and look at when the resignations comes. A week after this letter he penned to them, basically wanting them to get their act together for the first time, really coming down strongly. And within days thereafter, you have the resignation. The resignation because I think Derby had seen that if any rigorous appraisal was done, remember that when she came on board in early 2020, COVID had just begun. The purpose of her coming on board was to pull things right in Transnet, because it had gone astray. In fact, to the contrary, ironically, things got worse. But remember, you can't reduce, just like you could never reduce the crisis in the ANC government when Zuma was in power to Zuma. you see, it's only part, or she's part of the problems. In fact, Kachalia is now saying that the Pride executive, Kumal Mzimela, is in fact the person whose head is calling for now, in the light of these resignations, trying to say that it's not sufficient. You need to get to the person on top of this all, which is responsible for freight train delivery. So I think, if you look at it properly, these matters are coming to a head now, and I think all SOEs are going to benefit, including Eskom. It's rather late in the day, but I am not one to be pointing fingers solely at Pravin Gordhan, just like I wouldn't be pointing fingers at Derby solely. There's a whole system. You see, it's a continuation of ANC cadre deployment, and that's why what Pravin Gordhan is looking at now, look at his letter to them last week, is the professionalization of the public service and the SOEs.
Well, then finally, and in a breath, Dr. Harvey, would you say then that, in a sense, that there's a light at the end of the tunnel? I know some cynics would say, yes, that's the light of an oncoming train. But in terms of seeing the end of the cycle of the crisis, is that what you're predicting in just a minute, literally?
Yes, I don't want to read too much optimism into what is happening, but I think rather late, Pravin Gordhan has begun to see, and I think he's been under pressure. He's been under pressure from COSATU and other elements in the ANC to put down his foot, and he did. He did it in that letter to Derby and them, and you see within days thereafter. I think she realized that she would not be able to be subjected to rigorous scrutiny in terms of what her purpose was on the board in 2020, and look at what has happened. But again, we've got to take this lesson from this. You cannot reduce everything in Transnet to her, just like you could not do it with Zuma.
All right.
But we've got to watch this space. There are very interesting implications, I think, for all SOEs that's going to emerge out of this crisis in Transnet.
Well, we'll all be gazing looking at great interest to see if that materializes, Dr. Harvey, because as we explained at the beginning of the interview, the economic impact is vast. And of course, we've been talking about former CEO Portia Derby. We'll certainly reach out to her and offer her a right of response to some of the things we've discussed tonight. Thank you very much for your time tonight, Dr. Harvey. We appreciate it.